Most people think they know their English level, but the moment real listening begins, something unexpected happens. But here is what actually happens the moment that real listening begins, and it is not what most people expect. You sit down, you feel ready, and then the voice starts. Maybe it is a native speaker in a podcast. Maybe it is a news broadcast. Maybe it is a conversation between two colleagues in a film. And within the first 20 seconds, something shifts. Words you have studied, words you have written in your vocabulary notebook, words you could define perfectly on a test, they blur together. The speaker does not pause. The speaker does not slow down. The speaker does not say each word the way your textbook recorded it. And suddenly, the level you believed you were at and the level your ears can actually handle are two completely different numbers. This is the real gap the test is designed to expose. Think about what your English level actually measures. Most learners build their confidence through reading and writing, where they control the pace. You can reread a sentence, you can look up a word, you can take 30 seconds to process a grammar structure before moving forward. But listening gives you none of that. Listening is real time. Listening does not wait. And that is exactly why your listening level is almost always lower than your reading level, sometimes by a full band on the scale, sometimes more. Here is the pattern that repeats across learners at every stage. At the A1 and A2 level, the gap is small because the language itself is simple, short words, slow delivery, clear pronunciation. The listener and the speaker are still moving at roughly the same speed. But from B1 onward, native speech starts doing something that no classroom fully prepares you for. It compresses. Words that are written as separate units get swallowed into each other. Want to becomes something closer to wanna. Going to collapses into gonna. Did you sounds like didya. These are not slang choices, they are the natural rhythm of fluent speech, and your ear has to be trained to decode them in real time. By the time a learner reaches the B2 and C1 range, the challenge is no longer individual words. It is speed, accent variation, implied meaning, and the ability to follow a speaker who never announces what they are about to say. A C1 listener does not just hear the words, they hear the intention behind the words, the shift in tone, the moment the speaker changes direction. This is why the test you are about to take does not ask you to read a transcript. It asks you to listen, once, at natural speed, the way real English actually moves. Because your real level is not what you score when conditions are perfect, it is what you understand when conditions are real. And that number, for most learners, is about to surprise them. And the gap does not stop at decoding individual sounds, because once your ear learns to handle compression, the test gets harder in a completely different direction. Think about what happens when a speaker moves at natural speed through a sentence that has no difficult words in it at all. Every single word is one you know. I was going to call you, but then I figured you were probably busy. Nothing there should stop a B1 learner. The vocabulary is basic, the grammar is simple. But listen to that sentence spoken quickly by a native speaker, and something strange happens. The words arrive before the brain has finished processing the last ones. And instead of meaning, you get a kind of blur. You caught the beginning, you caught the end, the middle is gone. This is called the processing lag, and it is the single most underestimated obstacle between B1 and B2. It is not about what you know, it is about how fast your brain can retrieve what you know while new information is already arriving. Reading gives you time to retrieve, listening does not. And the moment your retrieval speed falls behind the speaker's pace, comprehension does not dip slightly, it collapses. One missed phrase pulls the next one down with it, and within seconds you are guessing from context rather than actually following the conversation. Now, here is where the test you are taking is designed to reveal something specific about you. Not your vocabulary size, not your grammar accuracy, but your retrieval speed under real conditions. The speed at which your brain moves from hearing a sound to extracting its meaning, in the middle of a sentence that is not waiting for you. At the B1 level, most learners can follow a speaker when the topic is familiar and the delivery is clear. Put them in front of a conversation about travel, daily routines, or simple opinions, and comprehension holds. But shift the topic slightly, introduce a professional context, an abstract idea, or a speaker who uses a different regional accent, and that same learner, with the same vocabulary, drops a full level. Not because they forgot words, because their processing speed was calibrated for ideal conditions, and real English does not offer ideal conditions. This is the distinction the test is built around. The difference between your ceiling level, what you can understand when everything is working in your favor, and your floor level, which is what you actually hold on to when the speaker is fast, the topic is unfamiliar, and there is no transcript to fall back on. Most learners have never measured their floor. They have only ever tested their ceiling, and the distance between those two numbers is where your real English level lives. Not at the top, but in the gap between the best you can do and the minimum you can sustain. That gap is what the next part of this test is going to put under pressure. Which one hits closer to home for you? Do you lose the thread because the words arrive too fast, or because an unfamiliar accent throws off your ear completely? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let's find out exactly where that gap lives by putting your listening through the actual levels right now. You have studied English for years, and that is exactly where the problem hides. You know grammar rules, you can name the tenses, you have a vocabulary list somewhere, maybe in a notebook, maybe in an app, and it is longer than you think. You have passed tests, you have finished courses, and somewhere along the way, you started to feel like you had a real handle on this language. Then a real person spoke at real speed and something broke. That break has a name. It lives at B1. B1 is the middle level, not a beginner, not advanced, but the place where most learners actually spend their years without realizing it. At B1, the topics are familiar: travel, work, news, simple opinions. A speaker telling you about their weekend, their job, a problem they solved. Nothing abstract, nothing technical. The vocabulary is not rare, but the delivery is real. No pauses inserted for your benefit. No careful enunciation, just a person talking the way people actually talk. So, listen now. One pass, natural speed. Do not pause, do not rewind. I had a meeting this morning that honestly could have been an email. We spent almost 40 minutes going back and forth about the new schedule, and by the end, nobody had really agreed on anything. I think we are just going to have to revisit the whole thing next week. Anyway, I still need to sort out the travel arrangements before Friday, so that is what I am focusing on now. That was B1. Maybe you understood everything. Maybe you caught the beginning and lost one sentence in the middle. Maybe you understood the feeling of what the speaker was saying, the mild frustration, the unfinished business, but not every specific detail. Maybe the phrase, revisit the whole thing, landed clearly. Maybe, sort out the travel arrangements, blurred slightly at natural speed. All of that is B1. And here is the truth you need to hear. You do not need every word. You need the message. This is where two different listening habits split apart. One habit tries to translate in real time, word by word, phrase by phrase, pausing internally to confirm each piece before moving to the next. That habit worked at A1, It worked at A2. At B1, it breaks you. Because by the time you have confirmed the third word, the speaker is already on the eighth, and the sentence is gone.
The other habit listens for meaning.
It lets some words pass. It holds the shape of the sentence, the topic, the direction, the feeling, and fills in gaps from context rather than stopping to retrieve every piece. That habit is what B1 actually demands. You are not reading a text, you are riding a current. The listener who catches the message, that the meeting was frustrating, that something needs to happen before Friday, is functioning at B1. The listener still trying to confirm every word never arrives at the message at all. Understanding the message is more powerful than understanding every word. That shift, right there, is what separates learners who stay stuck from learners who move up. And moving up means the next level is waiting, where the words themselves are no longer the challenge. Sometimes you understand all the words, but you still do not understand what the person really means. That feeling, the one where comprehension and understanding are not the same thing, is where B2 begins. And if you have made it this far through the test, you are about to find out whether you have crossed that line yet. At B2, the vocabulary is not the obstacle anymore. You know the words, you can follow the grammar. The speaker's pace no longer breaks you the way it once did, but something else is happening in the sentence that your ear has not been trained to catch. The speaker is not just saying things, they are implying things. Their tone carries a second message running underneath the first one. And if you are only listening to the words, you are only hearing half the conversation. So listen now. One pass, natural speed. Do not stop. Oh, I am sure the new system will be a great improvement. It has only taken them 3 years to roll it out, and I imagine the training will be just as smooth as everything else has been. That was B2. On the surface, every word there is positive. Great improvement, smooth. But did you hear what was said? Or did you also hear what was meant? Because the speaker is not impressed. The speaker is frustrated. The 3 years is not a compliment, it is a complaint delivered with a smile. The word imagine is doing quiet, heavy work. The phrase, just as smooth as everything else, is not praise. It is the opposite of praise, wrapped in the shape of it. A B2 listener hears all of that without stopping to analyze it. They hear the words, they hear the tone, they hear the hesitation, they hear the opinion behind the opinion. That is what separates this level from everything below it. Not vocabulary size, not grammar range, the ability to listen between the lines, to catch what a speaker chose not to say directly, but said anyway. And here is the most common mistake learners make when they reach this level. They keep focusing on words. They hear an unfamiliar phrase and they pause on it internally, trying to decode it, while the tone of the whole sentence slips past them unnoticed. They get the surface, they miss the depth. The shift B2 demands is this: stop hunting for words and start tracking the speaker's attitude. Is this person confident or uncertain? Are they agreeing or quietly resisting? Is the enthusiasm real or performed? Those questions are not grammar questions, they are listening questions, and they are answered not by what is said, but by how it is said. The rhythm, the rise and fall, the word that gets slightly more weight than it needed. Listen for words, listen for tone, listen for meaning, because hearing is what your ears do. Understanding is what your mind does with everything your ears collected, including the parts the speaker never said out loud. And that distinction, right there, is the difference between knowing a language and truly living inside it. And now, after everything B2 revealed, that hearing and understanding are not the same thing, there is one level left. And it feels different from every level below it. At C1, you are not translating, you are not searching for words, You are not tracking tone as a separate task, something you remind yourself to do. You are just living inside the English. The language stops being a process and starts being a place. And if you have never felt that before, this passage is going to show you exactly how far you still have to go, or confirm that you are already there.
C1 is fast. It is layered. It carries abstract ideas, cultural references, humour that only lands if you patch the implication in the moment it arrives. A C1 speaker does not announce their meaning. They trust that you are moving with them, not behind them. Lectures, debates, long-form storytelling, conversations where the topic shifts without warning and the listener is expected to follow without asking for a map. So listen now. One pass, full speed. Do not pause. There is something quietly ironic about the fact that the more fluent you become, the less you notice the language at all. It just disappears, becomes invisible, the way a window does when you stop looking at the glass and start looking through it. And I think that is actually the only honest measure of fluency. Not what you can produce, but what you stop noticing. That was C1. Did the irony land? Did you feel the window metaphor arrive and settle before the speaker moved past it? Did the final turn, not what you produce, but what you stop noticing, hit you as a complete thought, or were you still catching up to the middle when the end came? A C1 listener does not process that passage in stages, they receive it whole. Now, here is the moment the test has been building toward. You have heard all 5 levels, you have felt where comprehension held and where it slipped. And that feeling, not a score, not a certificate, but the exact moment your ear started working harder than it wanted to, that is your real English level. Use it honestly. If A1 felt easy, you are at least A2. If B1 felt comfortable, you are reaching B2. If C1 felt natural, you are already there. And now you know what to do next. Not in general, for exactly where you are right now. If you are A1, listen every day to simple English. Slow, clear, short sentences until the sounds stop feeling foreign. If you are A2, listen to short conversations about everyday topics until you stop translating and start absorbing. If you are B1, listen without subtitles. Let yourself feel the discomfort of not catching every word and train your brain to hold the message anyway. If you are B2, listen for meaning, not just words. Track the speaker's attitude, their hesitation, the thing they almost said. If you are C1, listen to challenge your thinking. Podcasts, lectures, debates on topics that stretch you, because fluency without challenge stops growing. Your real English level is not the level you studied. It is the level where you can listen and live inside the language. Subscribe for more English listening practice at every level and watch the next video on screen to start moving